Hey there, Whiskey Noobs. Yet another announcement to start off an episode. I promise I won't keep doing this. Last week, it was a merch announcement, which, by the way, if you haven't seen the Whiskey Noobs merch, make sure you go check that out. You can find it through either of my social media channels. But this week's announcement is that there will be no episode next week. I will be taking a much-needed break. So if you notice that I'm not on Instagram or TikTok as much for about a week, that is why I'm not quitting. I'm not taking an extended or dramatic break or anything like that. Just a little bit of time off, and I will be back to the regularly scheduled show as of next week. Thank you guys so much for the support. We have a lot of exciting things coming up in the new year, and I will let you get back to your regularly scheduled Whiskey Noobs program. Let's start there. So, things have changed since you've been here last.
God, it's been a while since I've been on now.
Yeah, I want to see if you can remember.
This doesn't even look like the same room.
Yeah, it's basically not the same room.
This is kind of like my first job out of college. When I first started there, we were renting space so it was like an offshoot of the manufacturer.
Yeah.
And so we were working in a rented space in the manufacturer's built like shop.
Yeah.
While we built it.
Okay.
And I was working at a half kitchen table with like people grinding metal next to me. And so like I had to like get one of those keyboard air duster things.
Yeah.
Because it would just be full of metal shavings by like noon.
No kidding. Yeah, that's basically what this room used to be.
It was like a half kitchen table on the side, and now it's like a legit studio.
Now it's made for podcasting now, which for those listening, that will be, I haven't unveiled it yet, so it might be by the time this comes out, but I'm waiting on a couple of finishing touches before I do the before and after on TikTok and Instagram. But
I love the shelves.
Thank you.
I mean,
yes.
You had these shelves before, right?
Yes, I just added the third below it.
I like the brackets. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
big in the brackets here.
Yeah, they're like not floating, but they're more discreet. You know.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like the industrial look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So for those listening, you may or may not recognize that voice. If you're newer here, you probably don't. I want to see if you can guess your most recent episode. But first, I am speaking with Zack. Welcome back to the show. You've been a busy guy.
A little bit.
For a while.
Too much work.
Yeah, so for those of you who maybe had your money on like a falling out or something, he's just been very busy. We do still hang out sometimes, but podcasting on a weeknight is a lot harder than
it sucks because I moved closer, so I thought I'm going to be able to see everyone and do more. And then all of a sudden I was working 80 hours a week, and I was like, live right here. Don't see anyone.
Nothing. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so speaking of that, can you guess what your last episode was?
Do you know to start?
I do. I looked it up before you, because I didn't know off the top of my head.
So I was on a Glenfiddich episode.
Yes.
With Scotch, but I don't think that was the most recent one. I thought I was on one more after that.
I need to think. Was it just Glenfiddich? That was all we drank?
No, we did 2 Scotches, right? On my last episode?
Yeah, on your last episode we did. I don't remember if no, it wasn't Glenfiddich though. It was something different. So your last episode this is 84 that
yeah,
we're
I was about to say, you're in the 80s now. I know that.
This is 84. Your last was 54.
Oh, that's not as long as I thought.
30
in
episodes.
episode numbers. I mean, I was thinking I was in the 30s.
Yeah,
my last one. So
yeah, so it was Highland versus Lowland Scotch. It was when we had the Auchentoshan.
That's right, Auchentoshan.
Yes, yep. So that was a fun episode as well. So it has been a minute, but I had Scotch coming up, and I thought I'm going to book you a month in advance. So I started messaging you like a month ago.
You did.
I was like, you got any time this week? You got any time this week? So we worked it out, and now we have another Scotch. I don't know if this is going to be up your alley or not. This is going to be a little bit different of a Scotch. But it has a pretty unique finish to it, and we're going to do some kind of fun stuff.
I haven't seen, I mean, I saw what it is, but I haven't seen the front label, so I don't exactly know which of theirs it is.
Yes, that's a good point. So you don't know the
I've had their
finish.
15 year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've tried it at a bar, so I haven't actually owned a bottle of it. So
right, which is always like, sometimes if you try it at a bar and you're not paying close enough attention, then you buy a bottle and it tastes different than you thought it was going to be.
But it was okay. I mean, it wasn't like my go-to. I mean, I'm assuming from the color and the label that this is not one of their typical Scotches.
This is not.
I don't know. I'm more into like the island Scotches.
Island. Oh yeah, I know. You're into the
like
darker, the
Talisker.
peatier. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So This is Glenlivet is what we're talking about. This is their Caribbean Reserve. So that's why I'm not sure if you're going to like it or not. We'll see.
Sounds fruity.
Yes, it's going to be most likely fruity. I mean, they even make it look a little fruity with the orange labels and stuff.
Got apple vibes from the label.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is finished in Caribbean rum barrels.
Oh.
And that gives it ideally some pretty tropical-ish type notes. So we're going to see if that's truly the case or not. But we're also going to put a twist on it today. Today, I have 3 glasses in front of you. It was originally going to be 2, and last minute, we decided when we were talking about it, I was like, oh, let's add a wine glass. So,
because you've mentioned that on the show before.
I have, yeah. I've mentioned to people, I like Glencairns the most, or tulip shape in general. And then, if I can't get one, if I'm at a bar and there's no Glencairns or anything like that, then I like to go to a wine glass if they have them, because it has a similar shape to it. It focuses those fumes. And then we also just have a plain, very cylindrical, just rocks, lowball, tumbler, whatever you want to call it, old-fashioned glass. And we're going to see the differences between these 3. Now, I actually have done this before. We've talked about it before on the show. I actually looked it up. It was episode 48 with Justin. We did lowball versus Glencairn.
I remember listening to that.
Yes, and it was a little different, though. So what we did was we put a pour in each of them and tried them and talked about things we liked more or less about each. I wanted to do something different because I had this thought that, really we should try smelling them blind, because the whole point of the Glencairn is that you smell it and it's supposed to make it way easier to nose. So really we should do a blind smell. You can't really do a blind tasting. You'll be able to tell which cup you're tasting out of. But I needed a partner for this episode, thus the reason you're here. We're going to hold them in front of each other's noses and see if we can guess which is which. Now there's 3 of them.
I mean, I'm really interested to see the difference. So when I first moved into the house we built,
yeah,
we brought almost nothing because 2 cars, you can only fit so much stuff, Brought things to sleep on rather than, household things. But I had stemmed wine glasses, and I poured whiskey for getting the house.
Oh, yeah.
That night, right? And you can't agitate it with a stem, really, because it's weird to spin it,
Right, good point. Yeah, it's like...
So, like, the nose really has no...
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that'll be interesting then.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to... It's a weird grip to be...
I would guess that a Glencairn in the wine glass will be somewhat similar.
I'm hoping so. That's my hope, because I love Glencairns, don't get me wrong, but it's unreasonable at some places that just don't have them.
Yeah, if you're not at, like, a whiskey bar...
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of places, why would they have Glencairns taking up space?
Exactly. I mean, even one of the most expensive single pours that I've ever had was Old Rip Van Winkle 10-year. And it was at a bar that didn't have Glencairns, and so I got a snifter instead, which I don't have actual like wine snifters. There's like the short little plump stem, I believe. But I don't. They
probably
have
like a similar. I'm gonna sound really stupid. Like a similar volume to opening ratio.
Right. If you were to pour like a whole glass of wine, you mean?
Yeah. Versus like the small ones, like the amount of volume,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only thing I'm worried about is with whiskey, you only pour like an ounce.
Right.
With the large opening at the top, I'm wondering, does the shape even matter, or is it going to be equally problematic? Because
it's probably problematic. I'm hopeful, but it's probably going to be better than a lowball and worse than a Glencairn.
Right. So there's only one way to find out. So we're going to start with the blind glass tasting. I was going to do the other way around. I was going to do the Glenlivet tasting, but I thought, really the best way to know this is going to be to try it in all 3 of these glasses. We'll have a really good idea for it, I think. So I will go ahead and pour those real quick. And also I'm going to, probably after pouring them, because I need to focus on pouring and not spill it everywhere, I'm going to talk about what exactly the Glenlivet Caribbean Reserve is a little bit more. Okay, so I have them poured out now, and we have an even amount. So I didn't want to pour less in the non-Glencairn glasses, so we combined them all into one glass, and we're going to just pour it from glass to glass when we do the blind smelling, the blind nose. But real quick, so Glenlivet Caribbean Reserve. So as I mentioned, this is aged in Caribbean rum barrels. It's a single malt Scotch. It's 40% alcohol by volume, and as per the usual with Glenlivet, it is from the Highland region of Scotland. So we actually just talked about your last episode was Highland versus Lowland. This is the Highland region. Think Macallan, think Glenmorangie, those sorts of things, are as far as what we've had on the show. So
between the two, I do prefer this.
You prefer the unique finish, you mean, or what?
No, Highland.
Oh, you prefer Highland versus Lowland. Yeah, I think you did.
I do.
I think so, if I remember that episode correctly, but it was so long. That's like half a year.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. I can't believe I've lived in this house that long. Anyhow. Yeah, I think maybe you did. So,
which I didn't know coming in because I think Macallan was really all I had explored.
Probably. I think you had a peated Highland before. Like it's made as if it was Isla where it's got the peat to it, but I think it was a Highland if I remember correctly. I don't remember for certain. It wasn't one that we've had on the show.
Maybe I'll add a new one here.
Yeah, we'll find out. This isn't peated at all, so this is going to be very light, probably fruity because of the Caribbean casks, Caribbean rum.
Now, is this hard to get?
No, this should be very easy to get. Glenlivet, that's one thing I like about Glenlivet.
Well, I know Glenlivet's not hard to get because I see that almost every time I go in. I just mean this Caribbean.
No, this one's not. They do a couple different ones. I don't know off the top of my head. A couple different unique finishes and stuff that they're all very accessible, which is pretty nice. Okay, do you want to go first or second? What we're gonna do, we're just gonna hold one up and say okay, and then hold the second one up and say okay, I like number 1 or number 2 better, and hold the third one up, I like number 1, number 2, or number 3 better. Maybe we'll throw out a couple notes if we feel like we can.
I'll go first.
Okay. All right. So close your eyes. I'm leaving the mic for a second, and we're gonna you'll just say just number 1, number 2, number 3, and then maybe some notes that you get from it.
Okay. Well, maybe you should mix it up because yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm not just gonna hold it
because I know which one the whiskey was in at this point, right?
Right.
All right. Eyes closed.
Eyes closed. All right. So don't move your head too much.
Okay. Number 1.
Number 1.
Oh my God, it's definitely apples.
Okay.
Apples hit you hard up front, but I don't know. Let me get one more of that. There's syrup, so it's like I would say typical Scotchy syrupy smell on the nose, but then definitely get hit hard with apples. Like not to the degree of like, not to talk badly about Crown, but Crown is almost like a fake apple smell, like more like an apple sucker. Mm-hmm. This is like a real like red apple.
Okay. All right. Glass number 2. No leaning.
Same notes. A little stronger. I would prefer number 2.
Okay.
And not stronger in like a alcohol sense, like stronger in like the flavors were more distinct and more concentrated, I feel like.
Okay. That's the same one. Just make sure you're standing by it.
I don't know.
I spilled a little bit, my bad.
Still there?
Yep. It's still in front of you.
Okay. Just making sure you didn't move it back a little. I don't know. Now it's not so strong as the first one.
So I'm thinking my pouring agitated it.
It might have. Yeah, because it was really strong when you first got it up to my nose. Now it's not so much.
Okay.
I would say number 1. I got better. I got the apple a lot better than the less agitated amount. Okay. Number 1.
I will. We'll do all 3 again, but let's get
okay.
Number 3.
Maybe give it a second. Because there was like I would have thought that you poured it into a different glass for the second time you held that up.
Okay, I bet that's it. Let me get some fumes out. Okay, it's in front of you.
Number 3. Definitely still number 1.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. That one was probably the least on the nose that I got of all 3.
Okay. Now let's run through them in the same order again.
Okay.
Back to number 1
I like
glass. I'm going to give it a second to get the fumes out because that variable we did
very obviously made a difference.
Yeah.
Let me know when it's there.
Yep. I'm kind of blowing the fumes off.
I like it.
Lightly. All right, number 1.
Still apple syrup. A weak sense of the alcohol that's in it. Nothing harsh, but I'm still sticking with number 1 at this point.
Okay.
But the apple's delightful.
Okay, good. All right, I'm letting number 2 chill for a second.
And I feel like a lot of fruity stuff is like, it's some kind of tropical fruit, but this one is like distinctively apple.
Okay.
It's not like it might be a pear, might be a peach, might be an apple kind of flavor. It's like it is apple.
Okay. All right, number 2.
See, that one's harsher with the alcohol. So I would stick with 1. It's similar on the nose, but definitely more of a harsh alcohol cover up of the flavors.
Okay. All right, last one, number 3. Let it rest a second.
I mean, I would rank them 1, 2, or 1, 3, 2.
1, 3, 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when do I get to find out?
Okay, so I don't know if anybody could hear my talking or not. I tried to talk towards your microphone. We'll see. So I did pour it into the Glencairn. That way you wouldn't know which was which. And a couple of things that I mentioned while I was standing up there, in case people couldn't hear me. I think when I originally poured it into glass number 2, I agitated it like majorly because you're pouring whiskey.
Yeah. So basically, I got 1, and it was like good flavor profile, definite apple syrup, and then you poured it in and held it up to my nose, and it was like, that is the most strong apple smell I've ever. That was like smelling a freshly cut apple shoved into your nose.
Okay.
And then you held it back up, and I was like, is it there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely agitated it. Definitely have to give it a second. But yeah.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what 1, 3, 2 is.
All right. So I'll tell you your results, and then we'll go, and the pressure will be on me. So you selected number 1, Glencairn.
Okay.
Number 2, which was, so your rank number 2, which was glass number 3, wine glass, and then your rank number 3, which was glass number 2, was the lowball glass.
Wow.
And that's why I thought, because I'm like, well, I poured into there kind of aggressively, and all the fumes are just going to escape immediately because of the lowball, and I thought he's probably just getting pure nose.
I didn't even inhale. At the point of that, I was like, "Oh, this has to be a Glencairn because it's great."
Yeah. Okay. But that makes sense.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So at least that's how it went, and it was like telling because you get the wider the rim, I would expect that you get more of the alcohol escaping.
Right. Yes.
Right?
More
So
fumes leaving it.
It was definitely a ranking that aligned with like most to least alcohol and most to least flavor.
Yeah, and so that was something you said that I really want to highlight is I think what Justin and I said in the last time we did this when it wasn't blind was that with the lowball you get stronger alcohol. In the Glencairn, which is what Glencairn advertises, is you get less of the alcohol burn, more of the flavors because you're farther from the alcohol, but all the flavors are condensed right there at the top.
After doing that, that's definitely one that's not one of those whiskey myths.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see if it's the same way for me.
We'll see if it carries for you.
Now the pressure's on. I don't know. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and
At least I didn't drop the ball there.
Yeah. Yeah. Try to keep in the same proximity away from my nose, and I did spill
I'll
just
definitely
a droplet on you, so I apologize.
Oh, you're fine. But I'll let the gases escape there a little bit.
Yes, now we know. It makes more sense. All right. Eyes are closed. Eyes are closed. I'm going to tilt my mic towards me. I'll just lean. Okay, here's my mic. Okay.
All right. Number 1.
Number 1. Ooh. Yeah, so it's definitely... I'm going to lean towards my mic now. Okay. Yeah. So it's definitely grainy. It's definitely got the malt to it. Strong fruit, like you said, though. I mean, like, stronger than you might expect. You said apple. I can totally see, like, a red apple. I'm going to throw in a little bit of, like citrus zest. More like the smell of citrus zest, like if you express citrus for an old-fashioned, and less like the taste of like an orange. So I'm just going to throw that out there. All right, number 2. Is it in front of my nose?
It is.
Wow, okay. Okay. Number 2, way harder to smell. When I first smelled, I actually didn't know it was in front of my nose at first. Took a deeper breath, and then I caught, it was like all the same flavors, just weaker. So, yeah.
No initial ranking?
Okay, yeah. So initial ranking, I will say number 1 was better than number 2. But yeah, I would say number 1 was better than number 2. Number 3. Okay. All right, can I lean forward now?
Yes.
Okay, number 3 was really strong flavors. I'm really torn. I definitely need to do 1 and 3 again. Or not one, but like one of them is probably the Glencairn. I'm hoping, but it was way stronger. Number 3 was way stronger, but it might be just in comparison to number 2, which I barely smelled. So I'm not sure there. I felt like with number 3, I got more of the fruitiness, awkwardly. Like I got more fruitiness and less of the malty type flavor. So I'm going to let's try all 3 of them again.
Okay. You said you got more fruit with the last one than number 1?
Yes.
Okay.
More fruitiness, yeah.
That's interesting.
Okay. Don't be psyching me out.
In front of you.
Okay, can we go straight to number 3 real quick?
Yes.
Because they both got a lot of flavor. Okay. All right, we got to do number 2 one more time just to be fair. Yep. Is it there?
It is now.
Oh, okay. I thought it was. I was like, definitely harder to smell number 2. Okay. So I'm going to say official rankings. Number 3, I could smell the easiest. Number 1, I could smell it was close, actually. It was pretty close. And then number 2, I could smell the least. Number 3, I got more fruit. Number 1, I got more grain. None of them, I wouldn't say any of them had super strong alcohol. Maybe number 2, I'm getting confused now. Yeah, number 2, because I had to breathe so hard to smell it, to get the nose from it. So, okay, so are they cleaned up now? I can open my eyes? All right.
I repoured them twice, so you have no idea.
Ah, good call. I don't have any idea. All right. So to recap, I said number 3 was the best. Number 1 was next, and it was close. And then number 2 was by far the least strong.
So yours is interesting.
Oh, gosh. Hit me with it.
Your number 1 is number 3, right?
Yes.
That's a weird sentence. Your best one was number 3.
Yes.
That's actually the wine glass.
Was it really?
It is.
Okay.
And your second ranking is the first one?
Yes.
That's actually the lowball.
No, it's not.
It is.
So the worst was the Glencairn.
The worst for you is the Glencairn. Now, I think it could be because the Glencairn does take more effort to nose.
Yeah.
So I feel like you had to nose it so hard without your eyes open, like taking away one of your senses.
Yeah.
Makes you nose it so hard that you pull the alcohol. That would be my guess.
Here was a theory that I had, not to excuse the fact that I got it wrong, but here was a theory that I had when I was doing it for you was, does your nose need to be closer to the rim with the Glencairn because the rim is so much smaller?
So what I tried for you was I would let you smell it initially.
Yeah.
For a little while, and then I would slightly agitate it by spinning it on all of them. So that way the Glencairn didn't get a disadvantage. That was my thought.
Yeah. Because I wonder, since the opening is smaller, if you need to be closer to it. So let's try this. Let's try this, not to just excuse myself, but we should try this not blind.
The only thing I could think too, before we do it again, is I feel like the Glencairn's biggest advantage is whiskeys that are strong on the nose.
Okay.
For the nosing portion. So I feel like its advantage weakens once they're not that strong. And like, although this has really good flavors on the nose, I don't think they're like strong enough that the Glencairn has like a major advantage.
Right. That's what makes me wonder. So I'm gonna try both. I'm gonna try the wine and the Glencairn real quick. I am bewildered.
I think that you should go to the lowball.
Lowball was my number 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you should go right to that. Because I think I don't know, it might be noticeable now that you can actually nose it.
I feel like it will, but then I feel like it's an excuse, you know? It's hard to say, but I'm just curious now. I think I can see it. Like, I can see that it's not too different. And so here's the thing, a couple things. First of all, I wonder if the stronger alcohol burn is one of the factors that I was like, oh, I can smell it stronger. Like my nose was more stimulated.
Yeah.
Maybe. And then something that I'm thinking we did differently when we did it. So let me ask you without telling you my answer. Were you holding it so that my nose was near the center of the glass like this, or more near the rim of the glass like this?
So I did the center, especially the second time around, but I tried to keep it from the alcohol from being shifted towards the rim because I didn't want to give an advantage to the wine glass or the lowball.
Okay.
Because more of it would shift towards the outer rim.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because of the shape.
See, now if I just hold them up to my nose and I touch the rim to my lip, I feel like I can smell it in the Glencairn way more.
The flavors,
I'm stumped. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm stumped. I am pretty mind blown by this. I want to try it one more time. Can I try it one more time?
Yeah.
I want to see if this is repeatable or not. I'm going to pour them into the wine glass.
Just trying the Glencairn and the...
Yeah, let's just do Glencairn and lowball. Keep it simple.
Currently wafting.
Number one's easier. Number one's more flavor.
Number one was more flavor?
Number one was more flavor.
Well, you got it right that time.
What the heck? Is it seriously just not enough difference to even notice?
I don't think, like I said, I think that the Glencairn's advantage is ones that are strong with their nose. And I don't think that this one is that strong. Like, I think if I did that test again, I could easily do what you did.
Yeah, I'm stumped. So for those of you who didn't hear, because I just realized that we were both leaned away from our mics, I did it again, just lowball versus Glencairn, and that time I picked the Glencairn. Both times eyes shut. I am stumped by that. And maybe it's one of those snooty things. I don't know. I feel like...
I don't, like, not to diss the host, but I thought, I don't know, I really got it.
Yeah.
With the Glencairn, but like I said, if I did it again, I might not.
I'm probably better at holding it up to your nose than you are for me. I'm just better at things.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm genuinely... Because, so here's the thing. And I'm not just saying this, because you saw me, you held them both to my nose that time.
Yeah.
1, 2. And I got it immediately. That time, it seemed like such a stark, obvious difference. Like, when you did it that time, I was like, okay, one is stronger. And I was fully committed to, if one's the low ball, I'm committing one is stronger. You know what I mean? I even thought that. I thought, maybe the one's the low ball. I was like, no, I'm fully committing to this.
The other thing is the timing here. I mean, when you're doing it blind and we're pouring it from glass to glass to glass, like, there's less consistency.
Yeah.
If we were able to pour the same amount in all three, it might be. And they sat for a minute.
I almost wonder if we should have done it that way. Maybe that's a future episode. Maybe let's review this actual whiskey that we haven't even tasted yet. And then maybe we'll put them side by side. I wonder if, because you at first said the low ball was the strongest, like your first initial. I'm wondering if the agitation plays a really big role.
The agitation might play a big role, because I would have picked the low ball, I believe, right? Because that was my number 2. Yeah, so I would have picked the low ball if you didn't let it die down. And we obviously weren't sitting here with a timer judging out each time that it sat between agitation. So yeah, that could be. I mean, I think the other takeaway from this is, like, when people argue over which one's the best, like, it's not this monumental difference.
I think that's the huge takeaway. So, I mean, because I've always said Glencairns are by far my favorite, but I also say, drink it how you like it, and Glencairns are not a necessity. They're not like a barrier to entry. Like, you have to have a Glencairn.
Yeah. Like, if you can't find Glencairns in the store and you're like, you have a glass that you want, or a bottle that you want to try, like, don't wait for your Amazon order.
Right, exactly. I think that's a huge takeaway from this. So let's okay, so here's another point, actually. We'll have to do that side by side at the end here, because I just had a thought. Maybe the real takeaway is agitation is way more important than glass shape.
Yeah, I was about to say, because if I agitate the wine glass and I don't agitate the Glencairn, I'm going to pick the wine glass.
Right.
Most likely.
Which, to the benefit of the creators of the Glencairn, that's part of what they say as well, is it's easier to agitate.
It is easier. That's what I was getting into at the beginning, is that when I had a stemmed wine glass,
right,
it's more difficult to agitate because you feel like you're whipping the thing around.
Right. It's at the end of a whole stem. All right. Well, let's quit teasing the folks and let's actually review this. So
yeah, I have high hopes after the nose.
I do too. The nose is delightful.
I hope the fruit flavor holds.
Yes. I'll say it right off the bat. This is not for your average bourbon drinker. It's malty and light and very fruity in a non-bourbon type of fruit. It's not the cherries with cinnamon, the apple pie type of apples. It's not like that. This is like fresh fruit.
Yeah. This is like red delicious.
Exactly. That was the apple I was picturing was a very red,
Yeah. And there's no confusion with like other tropical fruits here. Is it like I feel like a lot of bourbons I can shoot to like a pear, stuff like that, and this one is not.
Yeah, I agree cuz I don't let me take another smell. Yeah, I'm trying to run through tropical fruits. Like I'm thinking there's not really any pineapple here. You could maybe, and I think this is just because of the maltiness, say maybe a touch of banana, but I think I'm forcing it to be a banana by, I'm trying to think of these tropical fruits while I'm smelling it. I think it's stronger.
See, did you get a banana with Brothers Bond on the nose?
Oh, yeah.
See, because that's now my standard for banana, and this is not banana.
Exactly.
But like, a lot of these flavors are relative, so I could see banana, apple.
Because it's
definitely like apple is my first thought for sure.
Yeah.
There's no nuttiness though.
No. And it's got a strong, I think what I'm attributing to the banana is like it's got a maltiness with like a honey. And that's almost giving me like, because you picture like, I always picture banana like banana nut or like a honey type. So maybe that's what I'm thinking. But the one thing I'll say that I think is different from me to you is I think I get more orange than I get apple. I do see the apple. It's definitely a red apple. It's definitely not like a green sour apple. But I do see that. But I think I might get more orangey.
Orange? I don't not see the orange.
Yeah.
I see an orange more than a banana.
Agreed.
But I mean, apple. Dark red, juicy apples.
It's there for sure. All right, let's go ahead and get the palate here real quick. Fair warning, just another cop out for me to be able to be bad at this. I burnt the heck out of my tongue yesterday, so we're gonna see how my taste buds do.
Ooh, I really like this actually.
There's something specific that I like about this, but I'll let you talk about it first. I don't want to poison your thoughts.
So there's definitely a fruitiness. I feel like the fruitiness doesn't last all that long, but it's still there. The fruitiness kind of comes back as I sit. And it's holding for a long time. Like, this is a long-lasting flavor from this. I get some kind of nuttiness. I don't really know what it is. Like an unsalted walnut.
Walnut, very specific. I was thinking maybe more almond for me, but
that might be it. But it's like one of those like dark on the outside, light on the inside nuts.
Yeah. I mean, I'm picturing like the slightly bitterness of like not like a roasted almond, but just
that's
like
why I said unsalted, like non-roasted, unsalted, like raw walnut.
Yeah, I totally see that. The thing that I like about this, and maybe this is what it is for you, is it has these sweet, bright flavors similar to a monkey shoulder or just something that's nice and light like that. A monkey shoulder, a Glenmorangie. Obviously, this has way more tropicalness to it, but it also has a lot more pop than those do. Like it's less mellow, probably a little less approachable for a newer guy. It dries your tongue out a little bit.
It does dry your tongue out. Yeah.
Being that it's 40%.
That was my next comment is this dried my tongue out way more than anything I can think of that's 40%.
Right. And a single malt. Because a lot of times the malts will have that nice kind of oily.
But I think the fruit flavor up front that I get, like as soon as it passes my lips, covers up the initial moisture sucking nature of this whiskey.
No, I agree. That's what I'm thinking too, is it has a pop of flavor to it that takes your mind off of what's going on in your mouth, on your tongue. And then I agree with what you said. The fruit fades out a little bit and the maltiness really shows up with a little bit of that malt bitterness and a little bit of honey alongside it. I think for me it's honey. And then on the finish, it just continues to kind of linger. I agree with you, though. I mean, I've already even eaten dinner, so my palate should be weighed down a little bit, and I can still taste it. It's got a pretty long finish.
It has an extremely long finish.
Considering, and I don't think this is a very expensive one. I believe this is rather affordable. I will look that up as we do this review here.
For Scotch, I think they're 15 years, relatively affordable too.
Glenlivet is, in general, comparing to other Scotches, it is relatively affordable and relatively accessible, easy to find.
At least here.
Yeah, at least here. So this is $45, which when you compare to some Scotches, that's not bad. Let me look up that 15. I know they have a 12 as well, which is pretty cheap.
I want to say they're 15. It was similar price to that.
So 15 is French oak. It's actually a little bit more. It is $70, turns out. Used to be $80. How about that? Saving money nowadays. I might have to get
big coupon.
Yeah, big coupon guy here. No, but I think I would also venture to say the fruitiness is more pronounced on the nose, and it hits you when you first take that sip and then fades out on the palate a little bit.
I think it's nice, though, because it is weaker than on the nose, but it covers the initial alcohol when you first take the sip, and then the nut that we're getting nicely kind of makes up for the fact that my tongue is as dry as the desert.
Mm-hmm.
It really isn't that dramatic, but for like
when I'm drinking
for 80%
exactly
alcohol, it's pretty dramatic.
When I'm regularly drinking 110 proof, it's usually about like this amount of dryness. I'm probably over exaggerating because, like you said, but 40% I expect it to be like a walk in the park, and this does dry you out a little bit. I'd also throw in, and maybe this exaggerates the dryness a little bit of like a tannic bitterness, like a little bit of that barrel is showing up and making it a little bit bitter. I've compared it before to the flavor when you lick an envelope to seal it. A little bit of that kind of stays on your tongue.
Yeah, it actually does.
Can you
that's
see
actually,
that?
I really see that now.
Yeah, that's my best analogy for it. Or I think I've also said it's kind of like the bitter part of Swiss cheese, how Swiss cheese has like that bitterness to it. That's the type of flavor that it reminds me of.
No, the envelope definitely is hitting me.
The envelope
I taste envelopes right now.
That's pretty solid, isn't it? Yeah, it has a little bit of that bitterness to it. I forget what the last one is that I said had that, but it's got that a little bit. So let's talk about the notes that they say you should get, that Glenlivet says you should get.
This one I'm interested because a lot of them I could go like 10 directions with.
Right.
Right, but this one is like, it's fruit. It's like unroasted nut.
Yeah.
Like a walnut and almond. And then it's like malty finish.
Yes. And I think for me a pretty big one is honey for the sweetness.
I get a little bit of honey. I don't get as strong as some other things.
Okay.
But there's honey for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is pretty straightforward. And this is a straightforwardly fruity whiskey. Like this is, you don't hunt out the fruit. The fruit is there. And I remember that the first time I tried this, I remember thinking that. So,
but I do like, before you read that, I do like that it's not, I feel like I'm destroying Crown today, but it doesn't,
not like a flavored whiskey.
It doesn't taste like a manufactured fruit.
Exactly.
It tastes like a real, like this was a barrel filled with apples for 10 years. Not like I dunked the green Halloween suckers in it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. This doesn't, when we say fruity, we're talking from the perspective of an unflavored whiskey. Like this, well, it doesn't have artificial fruit flavoring in it, but it's very fruit forward. If you wanted to introduce somebody to a whiskey that tasted like fruit that wasn't fruit flavored, like that wasn't artificially flavored or whatever, you'd want to show them this probably. So speaking of which, here is what they give us on the tasting notes on the Glenlivet's website. Notes of pear and
apple.
No, what kind of apple?
Red apple.
Red apple. Meet a fabulous tropical twist. One thing that I guess I did mention of ripe bananas in syrup. I think together we nailed this. 3 for 4 out of that.
I had said syrup right out loud. That wasn't just in my head.
Yeah, you said syrup. Yep. So that is spot on.
Syrup's pretty characteristic of Scotch.
The maltiness. Yeah, 100%. And then for the taste, I said honey, but we got rich caramel toffee notes, are followed by mandarin orange, vanilla, and honeydew melon. Honeydew melon is interesting. I kind of want to think about that now.
The long finish, when I said that the fruit goes away really hard and then comes back. I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have guessed honeydew melon, but I can definitely see it. It was almost more like upfront orange, long-lasting faint orange.
Yes. I totally agree. I don't know if I've ever eaten a honeydew before. I'm not.
That's the green one, right? Or is that the orange one?
Oh, that's an awesome question. I think those are green and cantaloupe is orange, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
I don't really like those.
I don't like either of them. I don't.
I like cantaloupe's okay, but yeah.
I've had a bite of cantaloupe. I don't think I've ever had honeydew. So I can't tell you but I know exactly what they smell like. And I can kind of see, like you were saying, how it starts to fade. You can kind of see it.
It really, to me, it really fades and then comes back a little bit. Because it almost fades like there's no fruit left.
Right.
Is there any nut flavors or anything like that?
No nut. They do say toffee. They say caramel toffee. So you could see that. Or the thing that I was thinking is, we said kind of like almond or walnut, how it's got that little bit of bitterness to it. They put vanilla. And I would say I taste almost no vanilla. But if you think about like vanilla extract or like a vanilla bean, how it's bitter, it's kind of like that bitterness. So I could almost see that, not to accuse anybody, maybe that's what they were tasting, but I could almost see that as a dressing up of the bitter flavor. It's like, oh, it's vanilla, and I don't see a lot of vanilla.
So bitter, vanilla, almond and honey, and they say toffee and caramel.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where those sound better than our answers.
Yeah, oh, exactly. Exactly. It sounds better than what we said. It definitely sounds more complex than what we said.
Yeah. This one is not an extremely complex. I think the good thing is if you started somebody on this, like you said, into like fruit flavored whiskeys that aren't artificially flavored, is this one is very easy to be like, oh, I taste this, I taste this. It's not like a guessing game. Whereas like, is this really alcohol and I'm making all this up?
Right. I 100% agree. This is one of the most fruit forward. Don't have to hunt out the fruit. I think if you gave this to a newer person and you said syrup/honey, apple, orange, and then maybe some banana, I don't know. I think they'd be like, oh, yes.
On that last sip, I got a little more banana and I'm trying to find vanilla and I still just get like nutty honey.
Yeah, if you think about it, like, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have caramel, fruit, and vanilla. I almost feel like it's usually I shouldn't say this, because you do get caramel and vanilla a lot in like a bourbon. But this is such a different flavor than a bourbon. It almost, there's like no room for the vanilla, is kind of what I could see it. Like I said, honey, which you could argue is like a more vanilla-y caramel. But I just don't see strong vanilla.
Yeah, I agree.
So, we didn't even talk about the finish yet. So the finish, it just says citrusy and delicate. I think that's fair. They should have added that it's kind of a long finish, because for me, this is kind of a long finish.
I feel like that's a selling point, especially when you realize that by vanilla, they actually mean harsh.
Yeah, exactly. We should throw in something a little helpful there.
Like long finish. The fruit does come back. It is going to suck your tongue dry.
Right.
But in no way do I not like this. I feel like we were pretty harsh on it.
Yeah, I agree. This, I thought, I expected less. Let me put it that way.
I would say that somebody that is newer, although this is like a decent pick for them to get into the fruit flavor, I feel like it's not for somebody new, because I can't see you spending the money on this when you're getting into it.
No, and I would say, you bring up a good point. This is not for new person. This is for, in my opinion, I'm past the harshness, and whiskey now tastes good, but it doesn't really taste like anything. Like, oh, whiskey tastes good, but I don't people say fruit. I don't know what they're talking about. I think this could get you over that hump to, oh, this tastes like fruit.
I feel like that, or somebody who just got over like the middle and they start having like to actually pick what bottle they're going to go to that night.
Right.
Because they have a decent collection and you're like, oh, I want something that's like good for like sitting outside on a fall like daytime.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a little bit impressed with it. I think it's a little bit harsh. It's maybe a little, I mean, I think this about a lot of finished stuff. it could be gimmicky. It could be like we had this bad batch that doesn't taste great, so we put it in the rum barrel, and now this tastes super tropical. Because it is super tropical.
It is.
But for what it is, it's not too bad. I mean, it definitely, you don't have to hunt out the flavors.
It's its own thing, really.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't group it with anything.
No.
Any other Scotch.
No,
that I've had at least.
This would not be one where you were like, oh, I liked Monkey Shoulder. Where do I go next? This would not be on the list because it's just so different.
Yeah.
But, so, I poured some into each of these glasses. I'm thinking, I'm even going to pour some into your glass if I have to sacrifice it because obviously you have to drive. I'm going to pour a little bit into your Glencairn and your lowball. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 to really try to make sure it should be Glencairn, lowball. We'll see. So I'm going to hold up. We have 2 Glencairns and 2 lowballs. I'm going to hold them up in order, and not like in any order that you know, and you're going to rank all of them. That way it should be the top 2 rankings.
Glencairn.
Yes, we'll see.
Okay.
All right. Do I need to blindfold you or can I trust you?
I got it.
Number 1. It's gone now.
Okay.
Good?
Yep.
Number 2.
Okay.
Okay.
I would put 2 over 1.
Okay. Number 3.
Okay.
Okay. Number 4.
Okay. Ooh, that was a lot of apple. I would put 4 over 3.
Okay.
I would put the winners of both of those as the top 2.
Okay, so that was...
Can I open my eyes?
Yeah, you can open them now.
Okay.
So you said... So your top 2 were Glencairn, lowball.
See, I'm not surprised.
It's crazy. I want to try this now. I'm bewildered by this.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Number 1.
Okay.
Number 2.
Okay. Hold on, let me lock in an answer here. Okay. I felt number 2, I didn't smell as much until I leaned into it. I'm going to say number 1 was stronger. For now.
Okay.
I guess locked in, because we're only doing this once. Okay. I'm going to say the first... Okay, so for both of them, it was 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm picking 1 and 3. The first was stronger both times.
The first was... Okay, so you picked Glencairn...
1 and 3. So the first out of both duels.
Yeah, so you picked Glencairn and then lowball.
Did I seriously?
Yeah.
That
you did it just backwards of me, where I picked lowball, or right? Or no, we did the same thing.
Yeah,
we did the same thing.
Wow. So so let's talk about another variable here. Is I poured these, I eyeballed all these.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing is that I think we can conclude is the agitation and the volume of whiskey in the glass might be way more important than the type of glass you're using.
I think so. See, now I still agree, and I think the main advantage of the Glencairn is, 1, typical volumes, it's probably going to be better.
Yeah.
And especially if it's been sitting for 5 minutes.
Right.
Like, it's going to continue to be better. Whereas they're pretty comparable when they're first poured and agitated. 2, it's easier to re-agitate.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there are still, let's be real here. There are still benefits to Glencairns, right? So you've got, it's easier to agitate because it's narrower at the top. You've got, as you mentioned, the volume. It's a small volume glass. So working with a small volume works out. And then you've also got, you can hold it at the bottom. You don't necessarily need to heat it up with your hands like you do a lowball. And lastly, like you said, as it's sitting, it's going to evaporate less, which is also going to retain some of those flavors, some of those fumes.
Yeah. Now, I think undervalued might be is like warming it up with your hands.
That could be the case.
Because I think it's more enjoyable to drink out of the Glencairn because it doesn't...
It just stays the temperature that it was
stays when you poured it, yeah.
Yep. You could totally be right. So, but I'm not going to sit here and defend Glencairns. I'm biased to them. They're my favorite. But I am bewildered. I am shocked, truly.
I am too. And I think like I said, I think that it reaffirms, like, when you did it and I picked it in the order we expected, like, if you would do it again, I could pick in a different order.
Yeah, which makes me feel better, man. I was a little salty there for a second.
Well, I came in thinking it was going to be super distinct, and it was...
Me too.
It's not super distinct. I think if you did that 10 times, like 10 different days, I think 7 or 8 times out of 10 you would go Glencairn wine glass lowball.
I think you're probably right. I think, yeah, if you did it a ton of times, it would be more than 50%, but shockingly low because
it would be definitely less than 100%, as we proved. It would definitely probably be less than 80%, so that's why that was my 7 out of 10.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And you might mix up the wine glass and lowball, but I feel like you'd pick Glencairn as the best probably 60-70% of the time.
That's fair, I think. I think, as you mentioned, though, it is so not distinct. Like, it's so much less. I expected you to hold it up and me to go, okay, and then you hold up the second one, I'd say, yeah, that first one was the Glencairn. And you hold up the third one, I'd be like, yeah, that third one was the lowball. I expected it to be that way, and it was not at all. So,
but even holding them here, like the amount that I can agitate per second is such a difference that, like, I still, even if I picked lowball every single time, I still feel like I would prefer to drink from a Glencairn for the shape advantages.
Yeah, and I'll also add the Glencairn. You've got a smaller target for your nose, so the lowball, I don't know if you've noticed, if you nose the lowball and move your nose around, you get different amounts in different areas.
Yeah.
So, like, if you go like toward, like, near the rim, up past the center and up to the top, you get different levels of scent. So once again, there's all kinds of things that go into it, but the normally advertised, it's way easier to smell. I'm very shocked that it wasn't as much as I thought it would be.
Yeah. It's not. Like, if Glencairns cost like 10 times what a lowball cost,
yes,
it wouldn't be worth it.
Right. And
good thing glassware's relatively cheap.
Right. And I'll even add in, I think the good news to come out of this to maybe wrap up here is if you're at a bar that doesn't have Glencairns, it's really not the end of the world.
I was about to say it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, you're pretty
especially if they have a wine glass, because without a blindfold on and like making sure there's consistency and like agitation and nose, I would say the wine glass is close enough that you're definitely fine for a bar. Like, maybe don't order Pappy,
right.
Or like the typical thing you're gonna order if you're at the bar.
Right. You'll have no problem agitating. If you do a snifter that has that short stem on it, not the long one that's really hard to hold it by, but if it's got that short stem, then you're at least not warming it up. So you kind of get similar elements.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I am bewildered. I am shocked. I am impressed by I'm really glad we did this blind, because if I had just left this with episode, I think it was 48, I thought for sure Glencairns were better, but there's a little bit of bias there. You got to do blind tastings.
Yeah. I will say that this was a better than expected whiskey.
Agreed.
I didn't know what to think, because I feel like a lot of times, just things in the world in general, like you take something that kind of sucks and you do something different to make it good, because otherwise you wouldn't have been able to sell it. And that's kind of the impression I had of this going in. And
that's the impression with a lot of like strange different finishes. A lot people talk about it a lot with finished bourbons, for sure. 100% agreed. And with the bright label on it, with all that, you're kind of like, is this going to be a little gimmicky? And so far, I would venture to say, I can't think of anything different. I would venture to say this is the closest to a flavored whiskey I've ever had of a whiskey that's not flavored.
Oh, yeah.
The closest to tasting like a flavored whiskey.
I would 1,000% agree with that. This, if you gave me this completely blind, didn't tell me what it was, I would probably be able to guess that it was a Scotch for sure.
Yeah, because it's malty.
I mean, yeah, the Scotch, the malty part makes it easy, but I would say, where'd you get a flavored Scotch?
Right. Yeah, because like you'd never even see flavored Scotches. Yeah. So I think, in closing here, Glenlivet Caribbean Reserve, better than I anticipated it being. I would say fairly priced. It's not like go rush out and buy it if you can find it for the $45, but it's good. It's probably worth the $45. And it's the one thing I'll say, which is the reason that I will probably continue to keep it on my shelf, is it's different. It's something different. If you're drinking a lot of single malts, it's for sure going to be different. Yeah.
And it's kind of neat because it's like your Scotch with the twist without the twist.
Yeah. It kind of gives you that orange twist, because it does. It has that orange kind of zest to it. All right. Well, that's all we've got for this review of the Glenlivet and this comparison of the different glass shapes. I am totally shocked. If you tried this at home, if you got your significant other to help you with this blind tasting, let me know how it went for you. If you didn't, then maybe you want to, because I promise you, you will be shocked. This was a way bigger, way less difference than I expected it to be. That's for sure. But that is all that we can say possibly about this subject. We tried it, I think, 3 times. So I will leave you guys with learn to drink, drink to learn. Or in this case, learn to nose to learn, I guess. Thank you for listening to this episode of Whiskey Noobs. If you like the show, please make sure to leave a 5-star rating or review to help grow the show and get the word out. You can also find more Whiskey Noobs content on Instagram at whiskey_noobs and on TikTok at Whiskey Noobs Podcast. If you want to drink right along with me, make sure to join the email list by sending an email to whiskeynoobspodcast@gmail.com with a subject line saying email list. You will receive monthly emails with a list of the whiskeys that will be featured throughout the month so that you can buy them ahead of time and drink right along with the show. Once again, thanks for listening to this episode. The Whiskey Noobs Podcast does not support underage or otherwise irresponsible consumption of alcohol.